Introducing AirMeet, an all-in-one virtual and hybrid events platform designed for high engagement with an attendee-first approach. Now double your leads and revenue by customizing your event with interactive features, branding, analytics, and audience insights, while enjoying up to 98% attendee retention.
Welcome back to the Customer Success Festival. Before we get going with the next helping of inspiring content, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring this event to your screens. And don't forget, you can access even more content to elevate your CS knowledge by becoming a CSC member. Simply head on over to our website to find out more. Now sit back and enjoy the next session.
Hi everyone, thank you for dialing in today. My name is Robin Savage. I'm Customer Success Director here at Tessian, and today we're going to talk about building teams through effective leadership. Now, before we dive in, a bit of context for anyone not currently familiar with Tessian. We are one of the UK's fastest growing private technology companies, securing hundreds of world-leading organizations from inbound attacks and data loss risks on email. Now, today, that customer base encompasses anything from Wall Street banks, FTSE 100 organizations, you name it, they're using Tessian technology. And we've managed to grow a customer base of this size whilst also maintaining an industry-leading retention rate. Now, the only reason we've been able to do that is because alongside it, we've built a brilliant customer success team, which hopefully I can be helpful sharing some learnings from today. Now, I joined Tessian around 3 years ago, and over that time, we have grown the team rapidly. So when Alex asked me to give a keynote on building effective teams, I knew I'd have plenty of ideas and things I'd like to speak about. The challenge was more around distilling those down into something that's digestible and useful for people to take away today. What I've tried to land on in order to keep things incredibly simple are 4 lessons that have been really formative for me personally in my own leadership journey. They are by no means exhaustive. I think they're relevant at any stage of CS maturity, whether you are expanding an established customer success function or taking a leadership role for the first time. What I think people in the audience will notice as we move through these, for anyone who does have a sales background beyond CS, I think you'll see quite a few parallels in principles I like to apply that tally to sales methodologies. I personally think sales leaders can teach us a lot about applying structure and frameworks to optimize outcomes, and you'll see that come through in some of my ideas. So first, as you see the lessons here up on the slide, we're going to start off with hiring. That's your top of funnel. I'll explain and shortly and why that's so important. Next, we'll look at applying structure to your team's week and helping them optimize their own output. Third, and if any of my team are listening, I know they'll laugh at this point because I'm such a broken record on this topic, but I think leaders woefully underestimate how important it is to teach your reports to amplify their own successes, both for the good of the team and for their individual credit. And then finally, I'm going to wrap up with some really important lessons I've learned around authenticity, which I know may sound incredibly simple, but actually really can be underestimated. And you'll find if you're trying to truly build a winning team of top performers that authenticity has to come back to the core of everything you do. So anyway, we'll move on to lesson 1 now. I hope these are useful and I'll endeavor to expand as much as I can in how I've applied these principles. So first, lesson 1, on to hiring. Now, I've started with what I recognize as a pretty bolshy quote here. It's from Laszlo Block. He's ex-head of people ops at Google, for anyone who doesn't know him. And he is famous for talking about only hiring people who are smarter than you, important bit here, no matter how long it takes. Now, take that with a pinch of salt. In the world of VC-backed tech, you don't always have 10 years to wait for your next hire. But what you can take from what Laszlo is saying here is that hiring the right people is the singular most important thing you can do for your team's long-term success. And my God, is it worth putting the time in to prioritize doing that above nearly everything else you might have in your day-to-day. The reason why this is so impactful, and the fact that if I have open headcount on my team, it's the first and last thing I do literally any day, is because bringing someone into your organization has such a materially different impact to a tactical to-do list. And that hiring itself takes a lot of thought, a lot of time, and a lot of focus. And as a leader, you can be very proactive in helping versus expecting a recruitment or a talent team to prop you up. So on the slide, what I've also referenced here is about maximizing your candidate pipeline. Now, this is the most directly related to a sales funnel diagram you'll probably see through the presentation. On the right, you'll see through the conventional funnel shape, the more you put in, i.e. the more candidates, the more equivalent to leads you might have in a sales funnel, the closer you're likely to get to that ultimate win, in this case, securing a hire, and in a sales methodology, it'll be closing the deal. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a talent team or recruitment team, appreciate not everyone does, especially if you're in a smaller CS organization, they will be a big part of fueling this and bringing as many candidates as possible into the funnel. Regardless whether you are a one-man band or you've got an established talent function behind you, as a hiring manager, you can be a part of that conversation. And something I didn't necessarily lean into at the beginning of my leadership journey, but now prioritize above all else, is about involving myself in maximum networking and exposure for every open role that I have on the team. So that can be as tactical as ensuring you're posting all job roles on LinkedIn, making sure you do speaker engagements like today, so you hit as broad an audience of interesting talent as possible, or just networking and becoming really active in CS communities in order to get access to the right talent. I found that having a ready bank of people, regardless of whether you have open headcount, is one of the most useful things, because when you meet someone brilliant, even if you don't have a space for them on the team today, things change very quickly. And actually, some of my most exciting and energizing hires have been people that I've kept in touch with, where there wasn't necessarily a fit at the time, but I saw something special, we came in touch, and actually they've now come on to be one of the most impactful members of the team we've had so far. The final point I've made on this slide around hiring being the most important thing you can do as a leader when building your team is about remembering that every interview is a two-way street. So yes, for sure, in an interview process, you are assessing capability, values fit, but actually don't forget that the candidate's doing the same in the other direction. So you need to give them enough information to make their own decision about whether you're a good fit for them. Be genuine, be truthful. There's no point in sugarcoating anything. And what that will ultimately do is save both you and them time, where if you do end up offering to them, they don't come in with a distorted view of actually what that role might be and not being a long-term hire for you. But in tandem, and perhaps another really important thing that it's easy to overlook, regardless of whether that candidate isn't a fit for you, they're going to leave that interview, go out into the market and talk about you as an organization and as an individual. And if you haven't left them with a strong, good impression about your professionalism, about your values, then that's only going to harm your hiring chances down the line. So I think it's very, very important, regardless of whether in the early stages of an interview, you actually know that maybe the mutual fit isn't there, that you give that candidate a really constructive and positive experience so that they go out into the market and ultimately help you continue to meet your hiring goals. So anyway, big topic of hiring. We could definitely dedicate a whole keynote to it, but those are a few of the things that I really now prioritize in my work, which didn't immediately spring to mind when I was an early stage leader. The next lesson I want us to come to is around building foundations and structure into your team's week. Now, I think most people dialed in today will acknowledge, agree that customer success roles are very busy. You are involved with nearly every other team across the business. You have a lot of varying responsibilities. And I think one of the biggest challenges I recognized when stepping up into leadership and also saw in my team's day-to-day work was just how many hats we were being expected to wear, often in back-to-back meetings, very varied, a lot of context switching. And as a result, we weren't necessarily being our most efficient or really enjoying the work we were doing because the pace just felt so rapid. Now, there are a couple of different ways to go about addressing this, but in its simplest form, when I think of myself as a leader and how I map out my team's week, what I like to think about is how I need my team to be feeling at different points in the week. So in its simplest form, you might look at this as just day to day. So on a Monday, for example, I want my team to feel organized. I want them to feel like they're getting a handle on their week and understanding what their priorities are that they'll need to achieve over the days to follow. In tandem, what I therefore try to do is match the meetings that we have on a Monday to helping them feel that way. So we will do our forecasting calls, CRM updates, anything that's going to involve them making a plan and then having the following 4.5 days to execute on that plan. In comparison, if I was to look at Friday, so bookending the other end of the week, I want my team to wrap up feeling reflexive and proud of what they've achieved. I don't think going into the weekend at 100 miles an hour is conducive to good rest or really feeling like you can switch off, which I think is completely necessary and healthy. So as a result, when I try and think about how we map our team around a Friday, I like to prioritize personal development one-to-ones, give everyone a bit of breathing space and a chance to step back and reflect on what's worked, what hasn't worked. And also something in Test and CS that we are completely religious about is wrapping up on a Friday with a meeting where we all come together, both to celebrate the fun and silly things that happen in the week, and also to share that together and just wrap up feeling really positive. It's something I think is like, sounds fairly trivial, but actually is so important in order to help our team get to the successes it's achieved so far today. And then finally, the point I make on this slide, it's all very well and good being military focused on having a regimen that makes sense for what you think your team should be feeling at any one time. But I also have to recognize that I want to hire top performers who are autonomous and should and deserve to have control over their own weeks. So you can be intentional about the mechanics and the basic team meetings that you fit around this, but ultimately individuals are going to have their own preferences, and making sure they know that you trust them and allow them to manage their time around that in a way that makes sense for them is also really important. Cool. So if we move on from lesson 2, the next piece I would love to talk about, and I know I mentioned during the opening that my team would definitely laugh at this one. It's probably one of the lessons I bang on about most as a manager. Don't know if that's my bias as a female leader. I feel like I've seen some brilliant women or met brilliant women in my career who don't always feel as comfortable elevating themselves. And as a result have maybe missed opportunities through not realizing quite how intentional you need to be about this. It's a topic I feel very strongly about, but also can be done in different ways depending on your style. Now, the reason I feel so strongly about educating people that sharing wins helps build effective teams is because of the virtuous circle. You'll see on the right, this diagram is purely a product of my imagination, so goodness knows how well this catches on. But what you'll see that I've mapped out is this notion of when you help individuals on your team feel comfortable amplifying their own achievements, it has a massive positive knock-on effect. And I see that effect as being circular and virtuous in the way that it moves through. So if I were to walk you through step by step, first off, individuals feel appreciated. If you call out that a team member or a peer has done great work, they feel good about themselves. And ultimately their peers see that. Other peers are then inspired to emulate that win or that behavior that has been praised and therefore work harder. As a result of having worked harder, there are more wins to share. When there are more wins to share, people get celebrated, appreciated, praised, and called out, and the cycle continues. And this can be as tactical as sharing a quick update in Slack, calling out a team member, or making space for that in regular team meetings. I've just seen time and time again that when people lean into this, support colleagues, and feel comfortable calling out their own wins, the knock-on effect of those positive cycles is just so impactful for team performance. And I know for anyone who is super confident or happy calling out themselves, that might be a full natural. What I think from a coaching perspective and in terms of really driving strong team performance is changing this notion of sharing your wins is about self-promotion to actually thinking about it as a responsibility to share with others. So if you're in a company that's seeking massive growth, I actually think it's selfish to keep your wins in rather than sharing them with others, especially when you are building a product or driving a customer base together. And actually, as soon as that switch flicks and people on your team don't see coming to you and saying something's gone really well or sharing a win with a wider team as being boastful, but actually being something incredibly positive that we can all get energy from, I've tended to find that has a really positive knock-on effect that, again, just starts this virtuous cycle. And then finally on this slide, I've put, it's not just about ensuring visibility within your immediate team. It's also about expanding that visibility to teams outside of the business. Now, this is both for individuals on your team's personal progression, and I definitely believe that helping people to ultimately reach their career ambitions is what a true manager or a true leader should inspire and like put all their energy into, but also because it will be very positive for your team. So we are lucky at Tessian. Customer success is incredibly well respected. The business looks up to us and leans on us, and we lead and contribute to a lot of strategy. But in other organizations where customer success hasn't been such an early part of the pie, actually what's really important to be an effective team and to establish yourself with a seat at that table is to magnify your wins so the wider business know about them too. That might be your marketing team, your product team, your sales team. Let them know about all the hard work that's going on and make sure that that energy and that positivity from those wins can be enjoyed by others to drive the whole company forwards. And then finally, we'll move on to lesson 4, which I know sounds incredibly simple, but I think it's very important not to forget that everyone has their own style when it comes to leadership, and you can have personality with that. You'll see a few photos on the slide next to us of our amazing CS team here at Tessian, which is such a mix of individuals and personalities, but ultimately who all band together with a shared goal, and that's to drive the company forward. I know in the early stages of my own leadership roles, I definitely subconsciously slipped into behaviors that weren't necessarily authentically me because of what I assumed a leader should be. But the more I've shed this, the more effective I've found I've been in leading and managing others. And I think in order to build that confidence, one of the most important things for me was really making sure I make time to get to know the team I'm leaving, as well as them having the chance to get to know me and how I operate at best. That probably doesn't often feel like the most burning priority within your day-to-day, but the impact is colossal. And a few tiny tactical things I've used to help me with this are this concept of a get to know me exercise or a working manual. Another brilliant colleague of mine introduced us to a company called Strength Finders who can do comparable exercises. Whatever you want to call it, or whatever level of sophistication you do, anytime someone joins my team, whether a new hire or someone moving in from another portion of the business, I make sure that we spend at least 1 hour using a framework. It's just 6 simple questions that are about them getting to know me better and me getting to know them at a very tactical level, to the extent that it's what things really annoy you in a working relationship, what puts you in a great mood, what do people misunderstand about you. And I find in those conversations, you take the time to talk about things that just don't come up day to day. And actually putting that investment into your working relationship early on means when times do get tough and things get super busy, because you've got that foundational understanding of how to get the best out of them and they you, or vice versa, how not to annoy them or really sort of irk them, then actually you can be a much more established and effective partnership and ultimately wider team through having that understanding. And then finally, the bottom 2 bullet points here relate back to this notion that CS roles can be incredibly tough. They're very busy, multifaceted. You're expected to be a lot of different versions of yourself at any one point. But ultimately, if you want to be an effective leader and bring people on that journey, being as open and transparent with your team when things are tough and about how you're thinking about things is a much more constructive way to do so than to throw in a decision and not necessarily know which direction that's going to be interpreted. I've definitely found that the more I get to know my team, the more we build trust, the more honest I'll be with them when actually something's landed on my plate where I'm not quite sure how we're going to tackle it. But if I give that level of authenticity to them and ask them to contribute their ideas, help me be a part of finding a solution, actually all of us enjoy the process a lot more and they feel far more a part of the decision and therefore a part of the fabric of our team as a result. And then finally, I don't think this is new feedback to anyone, but as you are growing a team, they are expanding, things are changing. Staying open to feedback is another really important part of that authenticity piece. What worked for you when you were a 2, 3, 10 person CS outfit will not be effective at 50, 100 plus. And as a result, staying open to feedback and ideas and making sure you listen to the team and how they're feeling about things is going to be the best barometer on actually how effectively those mechanisms are working and how fast you need to evolve. So anyway, I've thrown a lot of ideas out there. I hope they were useful for people today. I do really believe that despite being broad, they're all applicable to any form of CS team, whether super early stage or much more established. And that spans from lesson 1, where we talked all about hiring and making sure that you are bringing in the best people to help you build this team, all the way through to that lesson 4 about being authentic and making sure you establish strong bonds with the team that you're working with in order to enjoy the journey together and be the best version of yourself. So anyway, I wouldn't be taking my own lessons well if I didn't also call out that at this point, we are hiring here at Tessian, both for CSMs and for other technical positions across our customer success organization. So if any of today's content did resonate, please do check out our website, have a look on LinkedIn, drop me a DM. You never know, could be speaking to the next generation of people who are going to help us grow the team. So thanks again and enjoy the rest of today's content.